Welcome. So in this video, we're going to be answering this question before us. It says, let f of x be equal to this right here, and we have to take note of the fact that we have a restricted domain. So the first thing we have to do in part A is find the rule for the inverse of it. When we're finding the inverse of something, we know that we swap x and y and then solve for y. Swap x and y. So instead of considering this as f of x is equal to this, let's just say it's y is equal to this. So now we're going to swap x and y. So x will go over here, negative 3y plus 11. Now I'm going to solve it for y, so I'll minus 11 to both sides. And now I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. So that means I'm going to get negative x on 3 plus 11 on 3 is equal to y. So remember, negative 11 divided by negative 3 will be positive 11 on 3 because the two negatives cancel each other out. So that means my inverse function is going to be negative x on 3 plus 11 on 3. That 3 is kind of ugly, isn't it? Let's try again. There we go. So that's going to be my answer to part A. So swap x and y, solve for y, and then write like this at the very end. Okay, let's now zoom out and figure out what the next thing we have to do is. So for part B now, we need to state the domain of the inverse. And for part C, we have to state the range of the inverse. Now, to do this, to state the domain and range of the inverse, what's really helpful is if we have the domain and range of our original function. Now, we have the domain of our original function, so let's figure out what the range of our original function is going to be. So we know that the domain of f is going to be negative 4 to 3. Now, to figure out what my range of f is going to be, well, if I know that this is just a linear graph, it's got a negative gradient. So to figure this out, all I really need to do is go, what is f of 3? And then go f of negative 4, and that will give me my range. So f of 3 is I put 3 into this. Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. Negative 9 plus 11 is going to be 2. And then if I put negative 4 into this, negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. 12 plus 11 is going to be 23. So that's how you could get it really easily. Now, if you're thinking, how on earth did you do that? What I'm picturing in my head, so this is now going into a bit of an exploration here. What I'm picturing in my head is the graph y is equal to negative 3x plus 11. And I know it's going to look something like this, right? It's going to look something like that. It's going to go through 11. I know that my x-intercept, well, what's my x-intercept of this thing? Well, to find my x-int, I let y equal 0. So it's going to be 0 is equal to negative 3x plus 11. Negative 11 is equal to negative 3x. So therefore, x is going to be 11 on 3. Now, that's the same as 3 and 2/3, right? Because 9, yep, 2/3. Now, if we have a restricted domain, so let me put that in. This right here would be 3 and 2/3. Now, if I have a restricted domain from negative 4 to 3, negative 4 to 3, that means this thing is going to look like this. Let's try that one more time. Wow, my hand is so shaky. Okay, so that's what it's going to be. And now we know that this is going to be negative 4 to something. This right here is going to be 3 to something. And now we just need to figure out what those are. If I sub in negative 4 to my function, I get negative 3, negative 4, plus 11. That's going to be 12, because 2 negatives make a positive, plus 11 is going to be 23. 1, 2, yep. And that's how we got 23 before. And then this one right here is simply going to be f of 3, which will be negative 3 plus 11. Negative 3 plus 3 is negative 9, plus 11 will be 2. And that's how we got 2 there. And then we're just merely reading off this 2, 23, just like that. But do you see how we actually didn't need the graph to determine this? If you know what this graph looks like, you can easily figure out what the range is going to be. But if you were having trouble kind of picturing this in your head, you could just give it a little bit of graph and go from there. Now, as I said, once you have the domain and range of the function, it's really easy to figure out what the domain of the inverse is going to be, because the domain of the inverse is going to be equal to the range of the function. So therefore, the domain of this is going to be equal to the range of the function, which is 2 to 23. And then the range of the inverse function is going to be equal to the domain of the function. Therefore, the range of the inverse is going to be equal to -4 to 3. That was right, wasn't it? Yes. Let's put a box around our answers there. So it's going to be this and this. They're ugly boxes. Ugly, ugly boxes. Let's try that again. Much better boxes. Okay, there we go. Better. So that's how you do it. So that's how you approach this question. As always, I want to show you like the quick way to do it, and that is kind of quickly just figuring out what the domain and range of the function is. But if you were having trouble with it, you can give it a quick sketch, but it is going to take some time. So I really recommend you getting a good grasp of what things are just basically going to look like, and then that will help you with other things like that. So with all that being said, hopefully you found this useful, and I'll see you in the next one.